My child's been gone 15 years. But at 3 a.m. his phone lit up, and I picked up. My name is Allar Vance, and for 15 years it felt like someone had carved a hollow space out of my chest and left me walking around it. My son, Zion, was 17 when he died. A drunk driver blew through a red light on a wet night and hit his motorcycle head-on. I remember the phone ringing at 11:42 p.m., that quiet hour when most of the world is asleep, and a calm voice asking if I was Ms. Allar Vance, mother of Zion Vance. That single question contained everything I didn't want to hear. People say mothers sense when something terrible happens to their children. For me, it was like a wire snapped somewhere deep inside before the doctor even finished his sentence. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. The days that followed were a blur. At the viewing, I sat beside the casket, stunned rather than crying, staring at a face that looked like my son and yet wasn't. He appeared to be sleeping, if you ignored the unnatural stillness of his chest, the faint grey color of his skin, the carefully applied makeup hiding bruises beneath. I held his motionless hand for hours, rubbing his fingers as if warmth and life might suddenly spark back into him like when he was little and clung to me for comfort. At the graveside, I dropped a white rose onto the polished wood and listened as the first shovelful of dirt hit the lid, a harsh, final sound that made everything real. My son was gone. I would never hear his laugh or feel him squeeze me in one of his clumsy teen hugs. All the futures I had pictured, graduations, wedding photos, grandbabies, collapsed into a few boxes of belongings and photographs that would eventually yellow with time. Zion's father, Darius, wasn't built to stay inside that kind of grief. 6 months after the funeral, he asked for a divorce. He said every time he looked at me, all he could see was the empty space where our boy should have been. I couldn't blame him. I saw the same absence when I looked at him. 20 years of marriage ended with signatures on paper and a quiet exchange of keys. Darius remarried. He had more children. He kept moving. I stayed stuck in the year our son died. Zion's bedroom became a preserved shrine. His clothes remained folded in the drawers, his sneakers still slouched beside the bed, his textbooks lined up on the shelf, his half-finished math assignment waiting on the desk for a boy who would never come back to complete it. Every item felt like a fragile thread tying him to this world, and I couldn't cut a single one. Every Sunday, I drove to Cypress Grove Memorial Park in Stone Mountain with fresh flowers. I cleaned the stone, pulled the weeds, and talked to his name etched into marble as if the words might sink through the soil to wherever he was. I told him about my week, small annoyances, little joys, weather reports, world events. Sometimes I read aloud from whatever book I was teaching my kindergarten class, the way I used to read to him when he was too excited to sleep. Well-meaning people kept telling me to move on, as if grief had an expiration date and I was simply ignoring it. I tried everything: therapy, grief groups, medication. None of it erased the ache. Over time, I didn't get better. I just learned to carry the pain without dropping it in public. Outwardly, I was a quiet woman who worked with little kids and lived alone. Inwardly, I was someone standing at the edge of a grave that never closed. There was one thing I did that most people would have called crazy. I never cancelled Zion's phone line. Every month I paid the bill so that his number stayed active. Every so often, on nights when the house felt colder than usual, I dialed his contact just to hear the old voicemail. "Hey, it's Zion. Leave a message and I'll hit you back." Those few seconds of his teenage voice were like pressing my ear against a door to a world where he was still alive. I left messages sometimes, like I was dropping notes in a bottle into a black ocean. 15 years passed like that. Friends aged. His classmates graduated, got jobs, got married, started families of their own. The world moved forward in fits and starts. New presidents, new phones, new crises on the news. I moved too, technically. Ate, slept, drove, taught my students the alphabet and how to share toys. But my heart remained the moment I put that white rose on his casket. Then came Wednesday, August 14th, 15 years to the week after the accident. I had gone to sleep early, exhausted from a long day with restless children. The house was dark and still. At exactly 3:27 a.m., my cell phone began to ring on the nightstand. The screen's glow lit up the room in a ghostly rectangle. The name on the display stopped my heart. Zion. Not Zion, do not answer, like I had renamed the contact years earlier to stop myself from calling too often. Just his name, the original contact, as if the phone had reset itself. My body reacted before my brain could make sense of it. My heart started pounding so hard it hurt. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. This had to be a mistake, a glitch, a network error, a dream I hadn't realized I was having. Or maybe this was the moment my mind finally broke. The ringing went on, 4, 5, 6 times. On the 7th, something inside me snapped past fear and reached for the call. I put the phone to my ear. For a few stretched seconds there was only breathing. Slow, unsteady, human. "Hello," I whispered. Silence, then. "Mom." The voice was his. Not similar, not close. The same pitch, the same slight drawl on the word mom that I hadn't heard outside of recordings in 15 years. My legs went numb. The walls felt like they were shrinking around me. I sank onto the edge of the bed, shaking so hard the mattress trembled. "Zion." It came out thin, like my voice had to travel from very far away to reach my own mouth. "Yeah, it's me." He sounded bewildered. "Mom, where am I? It's totally dark. I can't see anything. I'm cold." I fumbled for the bedside lamp and switched it on, as if light in my room could somehow illuminate wherever he was. A part of my brain tried to impose logic. It could be some sick prank, an impersonation, a hallucination. But the larger, older part, the mother part that had memorized every inflection of his speech, knew. "Zion, how?" The words broke apart. "How is this possible?" "I don't know," he said, breathing ragged. "I remember the crash. The curve in the road, the rain, the headlights coming at me, and then, nothing. Just dark. And now I'm here, but I can't move. Everything's pressed in around me. It smells like dirt, old wood." His voice shook. "Mom, I'm scared." Every hair on my arms stood up. Dirt, wood, no space to move. The picture that flashed in my mind made me feel sick. A coffin. I could barely get the words out. "Zion, you died. 15 years ago. We buried you. I was there. I saw you." On the line, there was a thick, almost tangible silence. "No," he said finally, sounding as if he were arguing more with reality than with me. "That can't be right. I'm talking to you. I'm thinking. I can feel everything. Dead people don't call their moms." "I don't understand either," I whispered. "But I held your hand in the chapel. I watched them close the casket. I watched them lower you into the ground. It was 2010. It's 2025 now." He started breathing faster, breaths turning into stuttering sobs. "That doesn't make sense. I'm 17. I was just coming home from Jada's house. How could 15 years be gone? How could I miss my whole life?" I staggered to the dresser and grabbed the edge with my free hand, trying to anchor myself. The situation was beyond anything therapy or church or medical articles had prepared me for. "Zion, listen to me. Where exactly do you feel like you are? What's around you? Wood above me? Wood under me? I can't sit up all the way. I'm on something hard. It smells like soil and mold. There's cloth. Something white. And I'm not wearing my clothes. It feels like some suit. His funeral suit. The dark one Darius and I had picked out when we realized his favorite hoodie wouldn't be acceptable in a casket. My mouth went dry. "Do you remember the cemetery? Cypress Grove Memorial Park in Stone Mountain." "Yeah," he said slowly. "We went there when Uncle Ray died, remember?" "That's where you're buried," I said, my voice cracking. "East side, under the big oak tree." "So you really think I'm in?" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I don't know what I think, I admitted. But I'm coming there now. The battery's low, he blurted. It's blinking red. I don't want it to die. I don't want to be alone here again. I don't even know how it turned on. A new piece of this twisting puzzle struck me. Zion, what phone are you using? It was in my jacket pocket, he said. My old phone. The little blue one. Somehow it still works. His old Nokia. The same device he'd insisted on being buried with during that strange period when he wrote out a just in case I die list like it was a game. At the time we'd rolled our eyes and gone along with it, never imagining the will of a melodramatic teenager would become instructions for a real funeral. Zion, I said, forcing myself to focus through the panic. If you really are in that casket, then you're under that oak tree at Cypress Grove. I'm going there right now. Just hold on as long as you can. Okay. His voice frayed at the edges. Mom. Yes, baby. I don't want to be alone in the dark again. You're not alone, I said, clinging to the words as much as he did. I'm on my way. The connection crackled. Batteries, 6%. It keeps flashing. His breathing quickened. If it cuts off, will you still come? Yes, I said. Even if you never call again. I promise. Static rushed in. His last words tumbled through it. I love you, before the line went dead. When I tried to call back, an automated voice informed me that the number did not exist, like someone had erased it from the network. I didn't think so. I moved. I dragged a jacket over my pajamas, grabbed my keys, and flew down the stairs. My hands were shaking so violently I dropped the keys twice before managing to jam them into the ignition. The streets of Atlanta were mostly empty at 4 a.m. I drove like someone fleeing a fire, red lights and traffic laws fading into the background. I half expected the car to be struck by lightning just to complete the nightmare. Cypress Grove's iron gates were shut, but a dim light burned in the small guard booth at the entrance. I slammed the car door and ran to the window, pounding hard enough to rattle the glass. The night watchman, Mr. Silas, jerked awake and stared at me through the window with wide eyes. Ms. Vance. He checked his watch. Is everything all right? It's the middle of. I need to get to my son's grave, I blurted. Now. Please. He blinked. His expression said he was trying to reconcile my wild hair and tear-streaked face with the quiet woman who brought flowers every Sunday. Ms. Allar, he began carefully, you know your boy has been gone along. I know how it sounds, I cut in, my voice breaking. But something happened. Please don't ask me to explain it here. Just let me in. He studied me for a long second, then nodded, grabbed a ring of keys, and stepped out with his flashlight. I'll walk with you, he said. It's not safe to roam alone in the dark. I barely heard him. I was already following the paths my feet knew by heart, left at the White Angel statue, past the Almeida Mausoleum, under the line of cypress trees toward the big oak. The night air was damp, the scent of cut grass and earth rising around us. The beam of Silas's flashlight bounced from stone to stone. We stopped in front of the familiar headstone. Zion Eduardo Vance. 1993 to 2010. Beloved son. Forever in our hearts. The soil above his coffin was unchanged. The grass trimmed neatly the way I tended it. What were you hoping to find? Silas asked gently. I didn't answer. I dropped to my knees and dug my fingers into the wet turf, clawing at the dirt, desperate to get through the 6 feet that separated me from my son. Logic said it was useless. I dug anyway. Pain burned under my nails. The earth barely shifted. Ms. Vance, Silas said softly, grabbing my wrists. You're hurting yourself. He called me, I rasped, smearing mud across my face as I wiped my eyes. Tonight. From down there. He said it was dark. He said he was cold. How am I supposed to walk away from him again? His eyes softened, sorrowful and worried. Grief can do strange things. You've carried this alone for a long time. Maybe what you heard was a dream you thought was real. It wasn't a dream, I shouted, startling a flock of birds from a nearby tree. I was awake. The phone rang. His name flashed on the screen. It was his voice. He looked at the undisturbed grass and then at my shaking hands. Finally he sighed. "Come on," he said gently. "Let me drive behind you. Make sure you get home safe. You can call your doctor in the morning." I let him help me up because I had no other option, not because I believed I was wrong. On the drive back, his headlights followed my car like a guardian. As soon as I locked my front door, I raced to the kitchen table, picked up my phone, and dialed Zion's number over and over. Each time, the answer was the same. "The number you have dialed does not exist." I sat in the dark kitchen, the phone cooling in my hands, thoughts racing in crooked circles. I needed someone who knew Zion the way I had. Someone who wouldn't dismiss me as crazy just because what I was describing didn't fit into their idea of reality. There was only one person who fit that description: his father. At 5:12 a.m., I pressed Darius's contact. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Allar, is everything okay?" "No," I said, and my voice cracked. "I need to tell you something. You're going to think I've lost it. But I swear to you I haven't." We met in my living room just after sunrise. Darius arrived still in yesterday's t-shirt and jeans, his hair grayer than I remembered from the last family function where we'd pretended we were strangers. He looked at me like I might shatter if he stepped too close. "You look like you've been awake all night," he said, trying for gentle sarcasm. His attempt at humor wilted against the tension between us. "Sit down," I said. "I need you to hear this." I told him everything. From the first ring at 3:27 a.m., to Zion's voice, to the descriptions of wood and darkness, to my frantic trip to the cemetery. I expected him to stop me halfway through, insist on calling a doctor, and accuse me of mistaking a nightmare for reality. He didn't. He listened, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles whitened. When I finished, the silence between us buzzed like a live wire. "Do you believe me?" I asked finally. He stared at the floor for a long moment. "I don't know what I believe anymore," he said quietly. "But I know you. I know you wouldn't invent something like this. Not about our son." Tears stung my eyes. "I need to understand what's happening. I can't just pretend I imagined it." "What do you want to do?" he asked. "The only thing I can think of." The words tasted like something forbidden. "Exhume the body. See what's really in that grave." He winced, the practical side of him kicking in. "You realize how hard that is, legally? We'd need court permission, paperwork, judges. It would take time. And even if we got approval, after 15 years, there wouldn't be much left to identify." "I know that." The thought of what we might find made my stomach twist. "But if there's even a chance that something else is going on, I have to know." Darius rubbed his face. "We'd need help. Someone who understands the legal and medical side." He paused. "I could call Kai." Dr. Kai Lewis had been his best friend since college, a forensic pathologist who worked for the county. If anyone could navigate death certificates and exhumation laws, it was him. "Do you really want to drag someone else into this?" I asked, suddenly afraid of naming it out loud to a stranger. "If Kai hears this from me, he'll at least take it seriously," Darius said. "And we'll need someone who can handle a body if..." He cut himself off, seeing my expression. I nodded. "Call him." Before he could, my phone vibrated sharply in my hand. Both our heads snapped toward it. The screen lit up with that same impossible contact name. "Zion. Do you see that?" I whispered. "I see it," Darius breathed, his face draining of color. My hands trembled as I hit the answer and turned on the speaker. "Zion." "Mom," his voice came through, distant and glitchy like a bad radio station. I managed to get a little more battery. "There's a light now." Darius swallowed hard. Son. It's Dad. I'm here with your mother. We can both hear you. Dad. The sound of hope in that one word almost broke me. Dad, where are you? What's happening to me? Why do you keep saying I'm dead? Darius took a breath that shook. Zion, we don't know how to explain any of this yet. Tell us what's changed. You said there's a light. There's a flashlight in my pocket, Zion said. One of those small ones. I must have had it with me. I got it to work for a bit. I can see more now. We heard muffled movement on his end, as much as could happen in a box barely bigger than his body. I'm in a wooden box. There's fabric under me. A white cloth over me. I'm wearing a suit that isn't mine. The funeral clothes, I whispered. Darius's eyes met mine over the phone, both of us remembering the day we dressed our son's body one last time. Try pushing the lid, Darius said, his voice tightening. See if it moves at all. Scraping sounds, a low grunt. No good, Zion panted. Something heavy is on top of it. Like the whole world is sitting on me. Dirt, Darius said under his breath. How long does it feel like you've been in there? I asked. From your side. I don't know. Zion sounded frustrated. Like I just woke up from a long nap I didn't plan to take. I remember school. Friends. Jada's house. The test I had in physics. Then the accident. The pain. After that, it's like a dream that goes on forever, and then I open my eyes and I'm here. What's the last date you remember? I forced myself to ask. I had a physics test that Wednesday, he said slowly. March 10th, 2010. Why? And today, I said, swallowing, is August 17th, 2025. You'd be 32. The line went quiet except for his breathing. That's not possible, he said finally, sounding small. For me, it was yesterday. Darius cleared his throat, his practical mind pushing forward. Zion, how much battery is left on the phone? About 30%, he answered. I don't understand how it's even on. This old thing should have died for good a long time ago. How do you feel? I asked. Besides, I'm scared. Like I'm half awake, he said. Like part of me is still dreaming. When I focus, I can see things. Not just the inside of the box. Other stuff. What do you mean, other stuff? Darius asked carefully. Right now, Zion said. You're in my room. You're sitting on my bed. Mom is wearing that blue shirt I gave her for Mother's Day. You're holding my swim trophy. My heart stopped. Darius and I exchanged a stunned look. The swim trophy was in his hand. The blue shirt hung on my shoulders. There was no camera in the room, no way for him to know that, unless he truly was somehow watching us. How can you see us? I whispered. I don't know, he said. It's like those dreams I used to have, the ones I wrote about. I float above everything, watching. I thought they were just nightmares. Maybe they were something else. A memory stirred. Your journal, I said, turning to Darius. Didn't he used to write everything down? We found the black notebook tucked deep in his desk drawer, its pages cramped with teenage handwriting. Sitting side by side on his bed, we read aloud while Zion listened on the phone. January entries described school, friends, band practice. Then a recurring theme appeared, detailed dreams of crashing in the rain, of headlights, of watching his own broken body from above. One entry, dated March 1st, described his own funeral in eerie detail. My sobbing at the coffin, Darius trying to hold himself together, his friends clustered in awkward silence. The last entry, written on March 10th, was worse. In it, he claimed he knew today is the day. He described the impact as if he'd already felt it. He wrote that if something happened, he wanted us to know he loved us and that it wouldn't be the end, that he would find a way back in another form. The postscript made my blood run cold, a request to be buried with his phone because, as he put it, I have a feeling I'm going to need it. The notebook slipped from Darius's hands. The air in the room felt thick. On the phone, Zion was quiet for a long moment. So I was right, he said softly. At least about that part. You dreamed all of this before it happened, I murmured. You knew somehow. My head won't stop buzzing, Zion said. I can see more than I could at first. I can see Kai at his office filling out forms. You already called him, didn't you, Dad? About digging me up. Darius flinched. Yes. We did. And I think I can feel other people, Zion added, his tone shifting. Not just you. Others. Stuck like me. Some are confused and lost. He paused. Some are angry. A chill laced down my spine. Angry about what? About being dead, he said simply. About what happened to them. Some are pushing against something, trying to get out. Trying to follow the path I'm taking. Darius's face hardened. And if they succeed? It wouldn't be good, Zion said. Not for the living. What do you need us to do? I asked, the fear changing shape into a fierce determination. Open the grave, he said. Get me out of here. There's something I have to do on your side. I don't fully understand it yet, but I can feel it. And we don't have much time. How much? Darius asked. 3 days, Zion said. Maybe less. There's a window, like a tide. I'm at the highest point now. After that, I don't know if I'll be able to cross. The call broke into static and then cut off without warning. I stared at the dead phone, then at Darius. We won't get a judge's approval that quickly, he said grimly. Even with Kai pushing. If the papers don't come in time. He didn't finish the thought, but I understood it perfectly. If the law moved too slowly, we were prepared to break it. The next 2 days were a blur of waiting and scheming. While I stayed home, glued to my phone, Darius and Kai worked every angle they could think of. Kai leaned on his contacts in the coroner's office, started the official exhumation request, and quietly let us know that it was moving faster than normal but still not fast enough. Darius called old colleagues with political connections, trying to shorten timelines that usually didn't bend for anyone. Zion didn't call again. Every time my phone lit up for a spam text or weather alert, my heart leapt and then crashed. I slept little, ate less, drifting between hope and despair. Had the window already closed? Had he slipped away again before we could reach him? On the morning of the 3rd day, Darius and Kai arrived at my front door looking exhausted. Kai's shirt was wrinkled. Darius hadn't shaved. They stepped into the living room like bearers of both good and bad news. The judge signed off, Kai said. We got permission. Official exhumation scheduled for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. I repeated. Zion said 3 days at most. That's today. Darius and Kai exchanged a look. We anticipated that, Darius said carefully. So we made other arrangements. Other arrangements, Kai echoed. Unofficial ones. You mean tonight? I said slowly, already knowing the answer. Tonight, Darius confirmed. After the cemetery closes. Silas agreed to let us in. He'll have some equipment ready. It won't be legal, but it'll be fast. Tomorrow we can pretend the official dig is the first time anyone opened the grave. The thought of sneaking into my own child's graveyard in the middle of the night with shovels and lies should have horrified me. Instead, all I felt was a grim kind of clarity. If Zion had asked us to open that grave, then that was what we were going to do. We spent the day preparing in quiet, practical ways that didn't match the enormity of what we intended. Kai brought dark clothes, flashlights, and medical supplies. Darius tucked documents in his glove compartment in case the police stopped us. I tossed a few useless items into a bag out of habit: bottled water, hand wipes, an old blanket, as if we were going on an overnight trip and not into the heart of something impossible. We left just after 10, when the last trace of daylight had drained from the sky. The cemetery looked different at night, its familiar paths transformed into narrow corridors of shadow. Silas met us at a back gate, his face lined with worry and resolve. He'd been watching over my son's grave for 15 years. Now he was helping us disturb it. "I've got a small hydraulic digger hidden under the bushes near the site," he said quietly. "Maintenance tool. Won't go as deep as the big ones, but it'll save time." We moved in single file along the darker side paths, flashlights pointed down to avoid drawing attention. The headstones watched us pass in mute witness. An owl hooted somewhere beyond the fence. The air smelled of damp earth and old flowers. Under the big oak, my son's headstone gleamed faintly in the scattered moonlight. Beside it, half hidden in shrubs, sat the compact digging machine Silas had promised. Kai and Darius swung into motion, starting the engine and maneuvering the scoop with care while Silas watched for any sign of approaching headlights. I stood by the trunk of the oak, fingers pressed against its rough bark, listening to the low mechanical growl and the scrape of metal against ground. The machine's arm carved into the grass I had tended for years, peeling back layers of soil compacted by time. I should have been horrified to see the careful surface destroyed, but all I could think was hurry. It took nearly an hour to reach the casket. The sound changed when the scoop hit wood, a dull, hollow thump that ran up my spine. They turned off the engine and switched to hand tools, shovels moving more delicately as they cleared earth from the lid. The grave became a rectangular wound, raw and exposed. Under their lights, the coffin looked oddly well preserved for something that had spent 15 years underground. The treated wood still held its shape, the metal handles dulled but intact. "It's sealed tight," Kai murmured. "The dryness of the soil helps." "Ready?" Darius asked, looking at each of us. I nodded, because what else was there to do? Silas made the sign of the cross mutely. Together, Kai and Darius wedged crowbars under the edges of the lid and heaved. The sound of the seal breaking was soft, almost polite. A faint smell wafted up, not the rotting stench I'd braced myself for, but something like old chemicals and dust. A strange bluish glow spilled from the narrow opening. I couldn't wait for them to widen it. I stepped forward and peered inside. Zion lay there, hands folded over his chest, as if someone had paused time at the moment we'd last seen him. There was no sign of decay, no collapse of features. He looked older somehow, and yet exactly as I remembered from 15 years ago. His skin had color, not the warm flush of a living boy, but not the waxen pallor of a corpse either. It was like someone had pressed pause in between. Under his hands, the little blue phone glowed softly, casting the inside of the coffin in pale light. "This is impossible," Kai whispered. "There should be nothing left but bones by now. Not this. Not like this." Darius reached in with a trembling hand and touched Zion's cheek. "He's warm," he said quietly. "Not hot, but not cold either. Like room temperature. Like something in between." I extended my shaking fingers and brushed his forehead. The skin beneath my touch was firm and pliant, not stiff. No pulse beat in his neck. His chest didn't rise. But he felt like more than just meat. The phone flickered. Its screen brightened, and letters formed as if someone were typing from within. "Get me out of here. Take me home. Little time. We're not leaving him in this hole," Darius said, voice cracking. "Not like this." Together, the men lifted him out carefully. Zion felt strangely light, as though some piece of his weight belonged to another place now. We wrapped him in the blanket I had packed and carried him up out of his own grave, through the sleeping cemetery, and into the back seat of my car. The glowing phone stayed clutched in his hand, pulsing faintly like a phantom heartbeat. No one spoke during the drive back to my house. The world outside looked ordinary. Streetlights, parked cars, closed stores, unaware that we had just removed a boy from a coffin 15 years after he'd been laid to rest. In his untouched bedroom, we laid Zion on his old bed, the Batman blanket still spread over it. It looked like someone had carefully placed a life-sized figure of him there for a demonstration. Only the glowing phone in his hand betrayed that this was anything but wax. Kai examined him as best he could with a flashlight and a stethoscope. No heartbeat. No respiration. No rigor mortis. No decomposition. If I hadn't seen where we got him from, I wouldn't know what to call this. The phone buzzed again. New words appeared on the tiny screen. Water. Sunlight. Music. We stared at the message, then at each other. He's telling us what he needs, I said. I brought a glass of water from the kitchen and tilted it toward his lips. Somehow, the liquid disappeared, as if it were being absorbed without the usual swallow. Darius yanked open the curtains, letting in the first pale streaks of dawn. Sunlight pooled over Zion's face. From his bedside table, Darius found the old radio alarm clock and tuned it until a classical music station came through clearly. Soft strings filled the quiet room. The phone's light pulsed more slowly. A final line appeared. Thank you. Need to rest. See you tomorrow. The glow went dim. Kai and Silas left with the first full light of morning, promising to keep the night's events a secret and to manage the official paperwork when the authorized exhumation happened. Darius and I stayed, one on each side of our son's bed, watching a motionless body that didn't fit any definition of life or death we knew. What if he never wakes up? I whispered. Darius looked at Zion's face, which seemed more peaceful than death had any right to be. Then at least he's home, he said softly. Not alone in the dark. We stayed there until exhaustion dragged us under. I fell asleep in the chair, and my dreams were crowded and bright. In them, Zion was older, broad-shouldered, with lines at the corners of his eyes from laughing in a sun I didn't recognize. He smiled and told me, almost, Mom. Just a little longer. I woke to a low hum. For a moment I thought it was an appliance somewhere in the house. Then I realized it was coming from Zion's phone. The blue casing glowed again, brighter than before, the light spreading like a mist over his hands, his arms, his chest. Darius, I hissed. He jerked awake, rubbed his eyes, and then froze as he saw it too. The humming grew louder, filling the small bedroom until I felt it in my teeth. Zion's skin began to change. Color bloomed in his cheeks. The pallor faded, replaced by a warmer tone. His fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered like someone trapped in a deep dream on the verge of waking. The phone's light thickened and rose around him like a cocoon, wrapping his body in a halo of blue. For one terrifying moment, I thought he was dissolving into that light. His features blurred. His limbs stretched. His shoulders broadened beneath the tight funeral jacket. Fabric pulled at the seams as his body lengthened, as if somebody had hit fast forward on a 15-year growth spurt. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the hum stopped. The glowing cocoon collapsed back into the phone and winked out. The room fell quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic outside. Zion opened his eyes. They weren't the eyes of a teenager anymore. They belonged to a man in his early 30s, wiser, deeper, carrying something old behind them. His face had matured too, the jaw a bit stronger, a faint shadow where stubble would grow, fine lines beginning at the corners of his eyes. He looked like a grown version of the boy we had buried, drawn from a future we never thought we'd see. Mom. His voice was deeper but still undeniably his. Dad. We didn't walk to him. We rushed. Darius reached him at the same moment I did, and for a few breathless seconds, we were all tangled together the way we had been when he was small and scared of thunderstorms. I could feel his arms tightening around me, solid and alive. His chest rose and fell against mine. It wasn't until I was forced to let go of breathing that the questions came crashing in. How? Darius asked, cupping Zion's face like he was trying to convince himself this wasn't another dream. How is any of this possible? Zion gave a small, tired smile. The short answer is, I don't fully know, he said. Time doesn't work the way you think it does on the other side. For you it was 15 years. For me it was more complicated. There were places and phases, lessons, versions of myself I lived through. When I woke up in that box and realized who I had been, I also realized there was a way back, if certain things lined up. He glanced at the phone resting dull and ordinary on the nightstand. That old thing was like an anchor. It kept a piece of me tethered here. Your visits, your love, your refusal to let me disappear completely. Those were like signals. Beacons. That's how I found my way through. What about your body? Kai asked later, when he returned and ran every test he could think of. For all his training, he had no medical language for what he was seeing. Zion had a heartbeat, a strong one. His lungs pulled air like any healthy adult. His reflexes were normal, if a little sluggish. Blood work was bizarre enough that Kai insisted on losing the samples before anyone else could run them. It aged to match my consciousness, Zion said, as if that explained anything at all. I didn't live those 15 years here, but I did live them elsewhere. When it was time to cross back, my body caught up. What was it like? I asked him one evening as we sat on the porch, watching the sun bleed into the horizon. The world felt louder and brighter with him in it. He thought about it for a long moment. Imagine dreaming you're 100 different people and then waking up with all their memories, he said finally. There was no day or night. No clocks. Just stages. I learned things I don't have instructions for in your language. I felt connected to everyone and everything and still separate. And then I heard you. Your prayers. Your voice on those voicemails. The way you said my name at the cemetery. It gave me something to aim for. And the others? Darius asked quietly. The ones you said were angry. Zion's expression grew distant, his gaze sliding to somewhere beyond the backyard fence. They're there, he said. Some accepted what happened and moved on to wherever comes next. Others cling to their old lives, replaying their last moments over and over. A few are stuck in loops of bitterness, convinced they were wronged and determined to make someone pay. Can they cross back too? I whispered, remembering his warning about those who wanted to return for the wrong reasons. Not the way I did, he said. Most don't have an anchor. They don't have someone who loved them stubbornly enough to pin them in place, or a body preserved in an in-between state, or, he nodded toward the battered phone, a link between worlds. But that doesn't mean they'll stop trying. Doors can be forced from both sides if people push hard enough. Is that why you took so long? I asked. Because you were holding them back? He didn't answer right away. Partly, he admitted. I didn't understand what was happening at first. I only knew that when I tried to follow the thread back here, others felt it too. Some tried to follow. I blocked them as best I could. When I felt the window open wide enough, I called you. I knew we'd only get one real shot. We didn't talk much about the legal mess of bringing someone back from the dead. Kai handled the paperwork like a magician, conjuring revisions to the original death certificate and quietly inserting a story about misidentification and an unconscious patient with amnesia found years ago and only recently matching Zion's old records. In official files, the narrative became a tragic clerical error and a miraculous reunion instead of what it really was. In the neighborhood, whispers started. People weren't blind. They saw an unfamiliar grown man moving into the house where a woman had lived alone since losing her teenage son. We explained him away as a relative, a cousin, a nephew visiting for a long stay. No one pressed too hard. Most people prefer tidy explanations. Life twisted to make room for him. Zion stumbled through the first days as if his body were a new pair of shoes, slightly too big in some places, not broken in. His hands were calloused in ways they hadn't been before, like he'd done work in worlds I'd never understand. He picked up a smartphone like he'd always known how to use one, as if information moved the same way on both sides. Technology amused him. People fascinated him. The hardest adjustment was mine. I had spent 15 years rehearsing letting go. Now I had to learn to hold on again, to an adult son who knew more about death than anyone should and who had experiences he couldn't fully share. Sometimes I found him standing quietly at the window, staring at nothing. When I asked what he was thinking about, he would smile and change the subject. Other times, I caught him humming along to songs he'd never heard in this life, and the melody made the hair on my arms stand up. One night, we sat on the porch steps watching the fireflies rise out of the grass. The summer air was thick with the smell of cut lawns and distant barbecue. It was such an ordinary scene that it made the extraordinary nature of his return feel even sharper. "Do you miss it?" I asked him. "The place you were. Whatever it was." "Sometimes," he said honestly. "There's peace in not having a body. No hunger. No pain. No clocks. But there's also no taste of coffee in the morning. No touch. No stupid jokes. No kids learning their letters. No you." Tears stung my eyes. "Was it worth coming back?" I asked. He smiled, a slow, warm smile that made him look briefly like the boy who used to race down these steps with a backpack barely zipped. "Absolutely. Being here hurts in ways the other place didn't. You age. You lose people. You worry. But that's also what makes it precious. A day means something because it ends." I took his hand, feeling the warmth of it, the pulse beating under his skin. "One day," I said quietly, "we'll have to say goodbye again." "One day," he agreed. "But now I know it won't be forever. It'll just be a change of address." We sat there in comfortable silence for a while. Crickets sang. A car passed slowly down the street. Somewhere, a neighbor laughed. The world went on being itself, ordinary and unbelievable at the same time. Sometimes I think about the moment my phone rang at 3:27 a.m., 15 years after my son's death, and his name lit up the screen like a hand reaching through time. I had learned to live with the idea that death was a locked door I could never open. That call taught me that some doors are more like revolving ones, terrifying, unpredictable, but not as final as we fear. I buried my son once. I watched dirt fall onto his casket and walked away thinking that chapter of my life was over. For 15 years, I tended a grave and talked to stone. Then the dead called me, and everything I thought I understood about life, death, time, and love shifted. Now, as I tell this story, Zion is in the kitchen arguing with Darius over the best way to make pancakes, laughing like someone who knows that every mundane morning is a miracle. His presence doesn't erase the pain of those 15 empty years. It doesn't rewind birthdays I spent alone or holidays I avoided. But it transforms them into part of a bigger, stranger narrative. Death, I've learned, is not a curtain that drops at the end of the show. Sometimes it's an intermission. Sometimes it's a side door that leads to a hallway you never knew existed. And sometimes, if love is stubborn enough, and a boy is reckless enough to insist on being buried with a dead phone, it's a detour that circles back to the front porch on a summer night, where a mother can hold her son's hand again and watch the fireflies rise. If this story reaches you, wherever you are in the world, whether you're listening from a crowded city or a quiet town, know this: the bonds we build don't vanish when a heartbeat stops. They stretch. They think. They travel in ways we don't yet understand. And sometimes, when you least expect it, they ring in the middle of the night and ask softly,